Let's get started. So coming to our mat, we'll do some more supine work today since we did all that seating work on Tuesday. So let's curl back and down to your mat, laying nice and flat to the floor. We want to find that little gap, that little tunnel there at the small of the back as you pull the rib cage down and in, and we find that nice alignment, hip to hip. Those hips are in alignment to the rib cage. There's that balance and that symmetry, as well as to the chest and to the shoulders. So we've got everything kind of squared off. Neither side is shifted to the side or rolled or pitched to one side. And we're going to reach our arms nice and long down by the side of our hips. And on the exhale, let's tilt our hips back. And we're going to pull our belly to our back. And then roll all the way through back towards the tailbone. We want to keep some pressure at the bottom of the feet as we press and tilt back. And anchor the low back to the mat to feel the back of the legs engage as we work into that pelvic tilt to decompress and open and stretch the low back. If you need to keep your lumbar spine in neutral for any orthopedic issue, you could just work a little hip hover by pressing into the feet, that little lift of the hip, keeping that gap at the small of the back, that natural curve of the spine, before coming back to the mat. Working more of that neutral position versus this flex, this hollow position of the spine. We'll do a couple more. Good. One more pelvic tilt. And rolling through back towards the tailbone. We're going to reach our arms nice and long, and we'll bring our legs to tabletop position. We're going to work our single leg lowers, just that right side to begin with. As we inhale to lower, foot taps the mat and rises. Staying on that right side, we're bracing more through the abdominals. We're reaching longer with the arms. Nice and smooth, nice and slow. One more on that right side. And we'll pause here at tabletop, reaching the arms farther, reset the upper body, left leg hinges at the hip to toe tap the mat. That nice smooth glide of the leg in the hip. Keeping the knee at the same bent angle, that 90-degree angle throughout the hinging at the hip. One more. And then we'll tuck the knees towards the chest, stretch through the back with the collarbone spread wide. And we'll rest the feet back to the mat. We're going to hover the right leg to tabletop and work our pelvic tilt, that little tilt of the hips back from a single leg position. Again, if you're working neutral, you're staying away from the flexion. It's just a small little lift of the hip, only about an inch or so off of the mat. So on the exhale, the hips are going to tilt back. You're going to draw the rib cage down and in, lift up off the tailbone as you pull the hips back and draw navel to spine, and then rock right back through to the tailbone. Again, exhale, we tilt. Holding that nice strong tabletop position with the right leg. As you press against the left foot to the floor to work that pelvic tilt. Right foot comes down to the mat, and we bring our left leg up to tabletop. Working that single leg pelvic tilt, pressing strong into the right leg as you tilt the hips back. Nice smooth articulation up the sacrum, between the hip pockets, bringing that flexion and that flattening to the low back, down against the mat. One more. And left foot rests to the mat. Fingers are going to interlace. We'll bring our hands behind our head to support the head, neck, and chest. And then on the exhale, we fold at the mid-ribs to lift. Bringing the shoulder blades up off of the floor, pausing for that breath at the top before resetting to the floor. Nice deep fold across the mid-ribs there at the brow line, below the pecs. Trying to almost peel the very bottom tips of the shoulder blades down back here, off of the mat. Your head, your neck rests back into your hands, supported by your arms and supported by the muscles in the shoulder girdle and the abdominals as you lift the head, neck, and chest. Finding that control of the movement so there's no shift in the hips or shift in the legs. Keeping that weight towards the tailbone, that little gap at the small of the back as you fold across the mid-ribs. Last two. Letting the head fall back into your hands as you fold and lift. Resting back to the mat. Arms come out to a T position, palms up towards the ceiling. Let's walk our feet together, go into that butterfly stretch. Let everything through the front of the body open and stretch. Rib cage pulls down and in, drawing the rib cage both front and back in towards the spine. Arms are reaching out nice and long, letting the sides of the legs and knees fall towards the floor. 2 more breaths. And slow to unwind. Knees are bent, feet are flat to the mat. Arms are going to come up almost overhead. Only bring the arms back overhead as far as you can keep the rib cage seated down into the body. Maybe you need to start the first few reps with arms straight up and then slowly find that range that doesn't pull your back and your rib cage out of position. On the exhale, we lower the arms, we lift the head, neck, and chest, and slow to reset. Always reaching and stretching the arms nice and long, drawing the ribs together in towards the spine, both at the front and the back of the body. We won't stay up for that extra breath. We fold on the exhale and inhale, reset. Reaching nice and long. Again, finding and maintaining that fold there at the mid-ribs, trying to pull the shoulder blades up off of the mat, almost to the very edge, the very tip at the bottom of the shoulder blades. Being mindful that we keep the movement out of our low back. One more. And shoulders and head come back to the mat. Arms come out to a T. Palms up towards the ceiling. We'll bring our legs to tabletop position. Draw ribs and abdominals in. And we're going to reach that right leg forward. Out nice and strong. Exhale as you bring it back. And inhale, left leg extends. We're going to alternate from side to side. Reaching the arms long. Drawing the rib cage in, feeling the weight of the chest press the shoulder blades flat against the mat, letting the collarbone spread wide. Nice and smooth control, finding that full extension of the knee. Pressing the legs straighter and longer. Last one with the left leg. And arms come back up over the chest. On the exhale, arms lower, head, neck, chest lifts. And slow on the inhale to reset, maintaining that bracing through the abdominals, especially on the reset back towards the floor, keeping that tension in your core. Three. Two, and one. Arms coming back out to a T, palms up towards the ceiling on the inhale, both legs straighten forward. And exhale to pull them back to tabletop. I add a little bit of extra flexion at the hip, pull the knees in just a little deeper. It allows me to decompress the low back a little bit, but I make sure that I don't overflex my spine, trying to maintain that neutral position of the low back as the knees draw in, so you get a bit more stretch through the upper hamstring towards the hip. While leaving the chest lift out, the legs will straighten just a little higher towards the ceiling to keep the torque out of the hip and the pressure out of the low back. And you're bracing both through the abdominals and the muscles up your back to hold the spine in neutral, bring you that stability and that support. One more double leg extension. And we'll rest the feet to the floor. Legs are together, arms still out at your T, and we twist and tip. Twisting through the mid-ribs, tipping onto that right hip, picking up the left foot, left leg and hip, as we anchor the left side of the chest, the shoulder blade down against the mat. And on your next exhale, we draw our abdominals, our back extensors tight to the spine, move the legs to center, and we twist and tip to the left. Anchoring the right side of the upper body. And slow as we come back to center. Over to the right once again, finding that rotation through the mid-ribs. Try to back off your stretch on the easier side. Hold longer, push farther into that tighter, more restricted side. One more, right and left. And back to center. Take a moment to realign once again, shoulders to the ribs, to the hips, so you're squared off on your mat. You have that little gap at the small of the back. Legs come to tabletop. Arms reach up towards the ceiling. You can take them overhead if your lats aren't taking over and pulling you into extension. And on the exhale, the arms flow forward. We lift head, neck, and chest, and we straighten the legs out. Slow on the reset. Keeping the belly pulled in tight. Nice, smooth glide. Three more. On that last one, highest chest lift, deepest fold. Knees pull into the chest, wrap your arms around your knees, hug the legs in, strong to the body. One more breath. And then we'll bring our feet to the mat. Legs and feet are going to be sits bones distance apart. We're going to work into our shoulder bridge, our pelvic curl if you're going to work that articulation of the spine. Arms are going to reach out nice and long. And on the exhale, we're going to tilt the hips back, imprint the low back, begin to scoop and peel up off of the floor, lifting the hips nice and high, without letting the rib cage open and separate or overarching the back. We want that nice clean line. And then next exhale, we curl down along the back, piece by piece. Rolling along the back, vertebra by vertebra. And hips tilt. And we peel and curl. Reaching the arms nice and long. Rolling down along the spine. Nice and smooth through the articulation. Feeling that stretch across the thighs. We've got some movement at the ankle to press the shins, the knees forward towards the toes. Two more. And resetting to the mat. Legs come to tabletop position. We're going to fold and lift, head, neck, and chest with hands resting at the knees. In for a little bit of single leg stretch. I'm going to pull the opposite knee in deeper past tabletop and switch. positional stretch as you lengthen that left leg, draw the knee in, and switch. Full extension of that leg, reach it out farther, find that full stretch before switching to the other side. Last one each side. And we'll hug the knees in towards the chest, rock back for just a minute, head and neck look right, and over to the left. And we'll curl up, float up into that teaser prep position, balancing on your sit bones, on your pockets. Lean back a little bit for that space for the chest between the chest and the thighs. And when you're ready, arms come off the legs. We hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feet drop to the mat. In for our butterfly stretch. Hinge forward or roll forward over the legs, pressing the knees down towards the floor. And we'll slow to restack, sitting up nice and tall. Let's come to our side. We're going to go for a sideline leg work. You could also do this standing if you do not want to be laying on your side. We're going to bend the bottom left leg into the sideline tabletop position. So I've got 90 at the hip, the knee, and the ankle for the setup. And laying down, head on my left arm. Right hand is there in front of your chest, in front of your ribs on the mat, making sure that that shoulder isn't up near your neck or your ear. We want to draw that shoulder down. Floating the right leg up off of the mat, stretching that leg out nice and long. We're going to zip up, find that engagement in the glute, and then right leg is going to lift up. I'm starting with a flexed ankle, pulling the top of the foot back towards the shin as that leg lifts. Nice and smooth as the leg glides. And then we'll point the toe. Reaching out farther with the leg. We want to allow the leg to move in the hip with little to no flexion or hike of that right hip up towards the rib cage. One more. And we're going to switch our leg position. Bottom left leg comes straight out as you wrap your bent right leg over the top because we're going to work adduction. That bottom left leg is going to pull up to work inner thigh, stretching the muscles along the outside of the hip and thigh. If this extreme angle of the right knee bent over is too much, you can always pad it with a towel or a foam roller or a pillow to bring that thigh parallel to the ground. Three, 2, and 1. Bringing our bottom left leg back to that sideline bent position. We'll float the right leg out off of the mat. Move the leg forward on the exhale into flexion, and then we'll point the toe. Inhale, bring that leg back into extension, reaching the leg behind you. Exhale as you kick forward. And inhale as you reach back. Keeping that alignment of the spine, trying not to bring too much movement in around the waist as that right leg flows and moves from the hip. Last one. And then the right leg is going to hover out. We are going to straighten that bottom left leg, floating the top right leg off about a foot or two off of your mat, off the bottom left leg. And we're going to squeeze the legs together to bring that bottom left leg up. Again, another form of adduction, working the inner thigh. You could always modify back to that first position with the right leg over to work that lift of the left leg. And we'll go for 3, 2, and 1. Returning that bottom left leg to its bent position, working our circles. Top right leg kicks forward and circles up and back. You can play around with moving your ankle, your foot in and out of that pointed toe and that flexed foot position. And we'll change our circle direction. One more. And I'm going to go back into that adduction, but we're going to work a double leg lift if you're sideline. Squeezing the legs together, we press and we lift up and slow to lower. And 3, 2, and 1. Flipping over face down. We're going to work into our basic back extension. You could do this standing, facing a wall if you're staying standing and off of that sideline and prone position. Arms come nice and long down by the side of the hip and thigh. Pull the legs together. Reach the arms, the shoulders down. Inhale. Head, neck, chest lifts. And exhale to lower. Stretching long through the back of the neck. Keeping the legs strong and active. Pulling the rib cage in, drawing your belly to your back. And we're squeezing through glutes, abdominals, back extensors as the chest lifts up off of the mat. One more. And hands come by the side of the chest. We'll curl the toes under. We're going to peel up, sit back, stretch back for that rest position before changing to the right side. One more breath. And slow to restack. Coming on to the right side. Bottom right leg is going to be bent at the hip, knee, and ankle. Laying down, head on the right arm with your left hand in front of the rib cage or the chest, drawing the shoulder away from the neck and the ear. We're going to stack hip over hip, shoulder over shoulder. And top left foot is going to kick up. Leg is lengthening long out of the hip as the leg kicks up and stretches long. I'm starting by driving through the heel in that dorsiflex position, drawing the top of the foot back towards the shin and the knee. Pull the toes towards the knees. And point the toes. Reaching out nice and long. One more. And we'll switch. We're going to drop that top left leg over the bottom right. Remember, you can pad it with a pillow or a roller or a towel. Bottom right leg is going to lift and lower, working that adduction, strengthening inner thigh, bringing that stretch to the outside of the right hip and thigh. And you can always change up the foot and ankle position. Work a few with that pointed toe, a few with that flexed foot. And we'll bring that right knee back to that sideline bent position. Left leg straightens out. And we're going to kick forward into flexion on the exhale. Point the toes and inhale to reach back into extension. Exhale, kicking forward. As we're moving that leg through its range, we want to keep the back stable, the waist from moving and shifting out of position. Nice and smooth glide of that leg. One more. Left leg hovers about a foot or two off of the mat. You're going to straighten that bottom right leg. Find your alignment, find that position on the hip that's also comfortable. And then on the exhale, the bottom right leg lifts to come up and meet the left leg. Try to keep the stress out of the neck, out of the shoulder, on that left side. 3, 2, and 1. Bottom right leg comes back to that sideline bent position. Take a moment to reset. We're going to work our circles. Top left leg kicks forward. Circles up and back. All that movement is coming from the hip, keeping it out of the waist as best you can, out of the back. Reaching the leg out nice and long. And we change directions. Nice and smooth with your breath. Keeping that bracing and that tension in the abdominals, in the back extensors. Last 2. And we'll straighten both legs. Stack the legs. There's a little bit of flexion to bring the feet and the legs forward towards the front edge of the mat. So you're back on the side of your hip, not so much on the bone, but on the muscles. And we'll squeeze through inner thighs, and on that next exhale, both legs lift and lower. Try to keep the stress out of the neck on that left side. Last 3. Flipping over face down. And again, you could stay standing for some more back extension. Legs are nice and long, stretching out across the mat. Arms are going to come out to a T position, floating off the floor. And on the inhale, we lift. Head, neck, and chest, gliding those shoulders down and back. And slow to lower. Ribs are knitted in. We're pulling our belly to our back. Good engagement in the glutes for these last 2. Hands come to the front. We rest our forehead to the back of our hands. I'm going to separate the legs a little bit for our single leg hip extension. On the inhale, the right leg is going to lift and lower. Staying just on this right side, we use the inhale to brace and lift the leg up and out. Good tension along the leg to stretch the leg long as it lifts. Trying not to bend that knee. Right leg rests to the mat, reset, and inhale, left leg lifts. And slow on the exhale as it lowers. Resting that left leg. We're going to bend the right knee. Flex at the ankle to draw the toes back towards the shin. Back into that single leg hip extension. It's like you're driving the bottom of the foot up towards the ceiling to lift the thigh off of the mat. You can do these standing, kicking back with that bent knee. 3, 2, 1. Right leg extends, lengthens on the mat as you reset your upper body. Bend the left knee, dorsiflex at the ankle to draw the foot back towards the shin. And inhale, we kick up. Bracing through the abdominal, squeezing into the glutes. Last 2. And legs straighten. Hands come by the chest. Lifting the head, neck, and chest. We sit back. Hips to your heels into that rest position with the arms reaching out nice and long overhead. Stretching the arms long as you press the chest down. And on the next exhale, we curl and restack the spine, drawing the ribs in, pulling the belly to the back, rounding up, sitting up nice and tall. The arms come overhead, fingers interlace. We stretch up and over to the right, back to center, stretching and lengthening up and over to the left. Moving the rib cage up and over from side to side. Last one, right and left. arms rest down by your side. All right, guys. Awesome work today. Thanks so much.